There is something inside you that refuses to die. No matter how many years you have spent living carefully, playing it safe, doing what you were supposed to do instead of what you wanted to do, there is a part of you that still burns. You feel it in moments you did not expect, when a certain song plays and something ancient stirs in your chest, when you see someone living boldly and feel that strange mixture of inspiration and grief. When you wake at 3 in the morning with your heart racing, knowing that time is passing, and there are things you still have not done, have not said, have not become. That feeling is not anxiety. That feeling is not regret. That feeling is fire. And it has been burning inside you all along, waiting for you to finally turn around and acknowledge what still burns. Carl Jung spent his life studying what he called the unlived life. The parts of ourselves we suppress, deny, or abandon in order to survive, to fit in, to be accepted. He discovered that these unlived aspects do not disappear just because we ignore them. They go into the unconscious, where they continue to burn, creating symptoms, generating dreams, manifesting as restlessness or sudden eruptions of emotion we cannot explain. Jung taught that psychological health is not about eliminating desire or transcending passion. It is about integration, about bringing what burns in the darkness into the light of consciousness, where it can finally be lived, expressed, and honored. Owen Hermstring, a contemporary psychologist building on Jung's work, developed a profound insight. He realized that the metaphor of fire is not just poetic. It is literal. What still burns within you is energy that has not been expressed, passion that has not been lived, purpose that has not been fulfilled. And the type of fire you feel most drawn to reveals exactly what you have been denying yourself, what you have been too afraid to claim, what you have been waiting for permission to finally pursue. Today, you are going to see 4 fires, each one distinct, each one calling to a different kind of unlived life. The hearth fire, glowing warm and steady in a home, representing the belonging and intimacy you crave but have been too afraid to fully open yourself to. The wildfire, spreading untamed across the landscape, representing the passion, adventure, and freedom you have suppressed to be responsible and safe. The dying fire, embers fading to ash, representing the dreams you have let go, the versions of yourself you abandoned, the possibilities you mourned and thought were lost forever. And the ceremonial fire, burning with sacred purpose, representing the meaning, contribution, and spiritual calling you have been too practical or too scared to pursue. Look at these 4 fires. But do not look with your logical mind. Do not analyze which one makes the most sense or which one seems most acceptable. Instead, ask yourself a harder question. Which fire makes you feel something you have been trying not to feel? Which one stirs a longing you have been trained to ignore? Which one reminds you of the life you are not living? Because that fire, the one that hurts a little to look at, the one that makes you want to look away, because acknowledging it feels dangerous, that is the fire that holds your truth. This is not a test to tell you who you are. You already know who you are beneath all the compromises and adaptations. This is a test to show you what you have been denying, what still burns despite all your attempts to extinguish it, what refuses to die no matter how many years you have spent living small, living safe, living for everyone but yourself. Jung believed that the second half of life is about reclaiming what was lost in the first half, about finally living the unlived life before it is too late. And Hermstring proved that the first step in that reclamation is seeing clearly what you have been refusing to see. So I am asking you now to be brave, to stop pretending you do not know what you want, to stop performing contentment when there is a fire raging inside you. Look at these 4 fires: the hearth, the wildfire, the dying embers, the ceremonial flame. Which one draws you closer? Which one reveals what still burns within you, waiting to finally be lived? Make your choice. And then stay with me, because what you are about to discover will not be comfortable. It will not be easy, but it will be true. And truth is the only thing that can set you free from the half-lived life you have been settling for. If your soul was drawn to the hearth fire, the warm glow burning steadily in the heart of a home, you have revealed something tender and painful about what still burns within you. What you crave, what you have been denying yourself, what refuses to die despite all your self-sufficiency, is belonging. Deep, authentic, unconditional belonging. The kind of intimacy where you can finally stop performing, stop proving, stop protecting, and just be held. If you chose the hearth fire, you are exhausted from being strong alone. And what still burns inside you is the longing to finally come home to people who see you, know you, and love you not for what you do, but for who you are. You have spent years, maybe decades, building walls, convincing yourself that you do not need anyone, that independence is strength and vulnerability is weakness. You learned early, probably too early, that needing people is dangerous, that opening your heart invites pain, that the safest way to live is to need nothing from anyone. So you became self-sufficient, capable, the person everyone else leans on but who never admits they need support in return. And on the surface, this worked. You survived, you achieved, you proved you could make it on your own. But deep inside, beneath all that strength, the hearth fire still burns. The longing for home, for family, whether blood or chosen, for the kind of connection that does not require you to be strong or impressive or useful, just present, just real, just you. In Jungian psychology, the hearth represents the archetypal home, the place where the self can rest and integrate all its scattered parts. If you chose this fire, your unlived life is not about adventure or achievement. It is about intimacy, about letting people in, about building the kind of relationships where you do not have to hide your struggles, manage your emotions, or pretend everything is fine. What burns inside you is the knowledge that you are living a defended life, protected but isolated, safe but lonely, and somewhere deep down, you know that all the success, all the independence, all the self-sufficiency in the world cannot replace the warmth of being truly known and loved. But here is what makes this so painful. You are not avoiding intimacy because you do not want it. You are avoiding it because you want it desperately, and that desperation terrifies you. You are afraid that if you open yourself fully, if you let someone see the parts you keep hidden, they will leave. They will reject you. They will confirm your deepest fear that you are too much or not enough or somehow fundamentally unlovable. So you keep the hearth fire burning inside where no one can see it, where it is safe from rejection, but also where it can never actually warm you. People see you as strong, independent together. They have no idea that you go home to an empty space and feel the weight of your own isolation. They do not know that you sometimes sit in silence and wonder what it would be like to have someone who really knows you, who sees past your competence to your vulnerability, who loves you not for how much you can handle, but for who you are when you cannot handle anything. The hearth fire reveals that your unlived life is relational, that what you have been denying yourself is not success or achievement. It is connection, deep, messy, imperfect, beautiful human connection. The challenge of the hearth fire is risk. You cannot build a home, literal or metaphorical, without making yourself vulnerable. You cannot experience true belonging while keeping your walls up. What still burns within you is the invitation to let someone in, not everyone, not immediately, but someone. One person who has proven themselves trustworthy. One relationship where you practice showing up as you actually are, not as you think you should be. This terrifies you because it requires letting go of control. It requires trusting that you are lovable even when you are not strong, productive, or put together. Jung taught that the unlived life creates symptoms, and if you chose the hearth fire, your symptom is probably loneliness that you cannot admit, or relationships that feel superficial no matter how long they last. Or chronic exhaustion from never allowing yourself to be held. What still burns within you is not a fantasy. It is a legitimate need. The need for home, for warmth, for the kind of love that does not require you to earn it. And the only way to live this unlived life is to finally, courageously let your walls down and let someone close enough to feel the fire you have been tending alone. If this touched something you have been hiding, subscribe to this channel to continue exploring what still burns within, and in the comments, share which fire you chose. Your honesty might help someone else finally acknowledge what they have been denying. If your spirit was drawn to the wildfire, spreading untamed and unstoppable across the landscape, consuming everything in its path with raw, uncontrolled power, you have revealed something that might both excite and terrify you. What still burns within you, what you have been suppressing, what refuses to die no matter how responsibly you live, is wildness, passion, the fierce, untamed desire to break free from every constraint, every expectation, every safe choice you have made to be acceptable. If you chose the wildfire, you are exhausted from being good, and what still burns inside you is the longing to finally, unapologetically, burn as brightly and as wildly as you were meant to. You have spent your life doing what you were supposed to do. You went to the right schools or took the practical job. You stayed in the relationship because leaving felt selfish. You chose security over passion, responsibility over adventure, practicality over joy. And for years, maybe decades, you convinced yourself this was maturity, this was wisdom, this was what adults do. But the wildfire inside you never believed that. It has been raging in your dreams, in your fantasies, in the moments when you see someone living boldly and feel that dangerous mixture of envy and recognition. What still burns is the knowledge that you are living a contained life when you were built for something wild. In Jungian terms, the wildfire represents the shadow, specifically the repressed instinctual self that civilization demands we suppress. If you chose this fire, your unlived life is not about being destructive or irresponsible. It is about being free, about finally claiming the passions, the desires, the adventures you have been denying yourself because they did not fit the image of who you were supposed to be. What burns inside you is anger, not at others but at yourself, for all the years you said no when you meant yes, for all the times you played it safe when you wanted to risk everything, for all the passion you buried to be palatable. People see you as reliable, stable, responsible. They have no idea that you sometimes lie awake at night, imagining a completely different life, one where you quit the job that drains you, where you leave the relationship that has been dead for years, where you sell everything and move to the place that calls to you for reasons you cannot explain, where you finally pursue the creative work, the business idea, the adventure you have been postponing until it is safe, which means never. The wildfire reveals that your unlived life is not about small adjustments. It is about radical transformation, about burning down what no longer serves you to make space for what does. But here is the shadow of the wildfire. You are not just afraid of freedom, you are also afraid of what freedom would cost. The wildfire does not discriminate. It burns everything, including things you built, relationships you value, identities you invested in. And the thought of that kind of destruction terrifies you, even as it calls to you. So you keep the wildfire contained. You let it burn in fantasy, but never in reality. You imagine the life you want, but never take the steps to actually live it. And with each passing year, the fire grows hotter, more desperate, more dangerous. Jung warned that repressed instinct does not disappear. It builds pressure, and eventually, it erupts. If you chose the wildfire, you may be heading toward that eruption. The midlife crisis, the sudden ending of a marriage, the reckless decision that shocks everyone who thought they knew you. This is what happens when the unlived life finally forces its way into consciousness, but it doesn't have to be destructive. The wildfire can be intentional. You can choose to burn down what needs to go rather than waiting for the fire to make that choice for you. What still burns within you is permission. Permission to want what you want without justifying it. Permission to choose passion over security. Permission to live for yourself instead of for everyone else's comfort. The wildfire is not asking you to destroy your entire life. It is asking you to stop betraying yourself, to stop living in a cage you built to be safe and acceptable, to finally, while there is still time, claim the wild, passionate, fully alive life that has been burning inside you all along. The question is not whether the fire is real. The question is whether you will finally give it oxygen or continue to suffocate it until you forget what it feels like to truly burn. If your eyes were drawn to the dying fire, the embers fading to ash, the last remnants of a flame that once burned bright but now barely glows, you have revealed something profoundly painful about what still burns within you. What you crave, what you grieve, what refuses to completely die despite all your attempts to move on, is the life you almost lived, the dream you abandoned, the version of yourself you let go, the possibility you mourned and thought was gone forever. If you chose the dying fire, you carry the weight of unlived potential, and what still burns, barely but persistently, is the question, is it too late? You had dreams once, real ones. You were going to be an artist, a writer, a musician, a traveler, an entrepreneur, something that made you feel alive in a way your current life does not. But life happened. Responsibilities accumulated. Bills needed to be paid. People needed things from you. And slowly, so slowly you barely noticed, you let the fire die. You told yourself you were being realistic, practical, mature. You convinced yourself that dreams are for the young, and you are past that now. But the embers never fully went cold. They glow in the dark when you are alone. They flare up when you see someone else living the life you abandoned. They remind you, painfully, that once upon a time, you were going to be someone different than who you became. In Jungian psychology, the dying fire represents what Jung called the unlived life, the aspects of our potential that we sacrificed to adapt to reality. If you chose this fire, you are carrying grief, not for someone who died, but for the version of yourself who never got to live, for the artist who became the accountant, for the adventurer who became the office worker, for the wild soul who became the responsible adult. And the hardest part is that you cannot even fully mourn this loss because everyone around you thinks you are fine, successful even. They have no idea that you feel like you are living someone else's life while your real life died years ago. People look at you and see stability, maybe even success. You have the career, the house, the family, all the markers of a life well lived, but you know the truth. You know that every day you wake up and play a role, that you have become good at things that do not matter to you, that you have built a life that looks impressive from the outside but feels empty from the inside. The dying fire reveals that your unlived life is not ahead of you, it is behind you, or so you think. What still burns even as embers is the possibility that maybe, just maybe, it is not too late to reignite what you thought was lost forever. But here is what makes the dying fire so painful. You are not just grieving what you lost. You are angry at yourself for letting it die, for choosing safety over passion, for listening to the voices that told you to be realistic instead of the voice that told you to be yourself, for believing that there would always be time later, and then discovering that later became never. The dying fire carries shame. The shame of betraying yourself, of becoming the person you swore you would never be, of settling for a half-lived life because the full life felt too risky or too selfish or too impossible. Jung taught that it is never too late for transformation, that the psyche has a natural drive toward wholeness that does not expire with age. If you chose the dying fire, what still burns within you is not just memory, it is possibility. The embers can be reignited. The dream can be reclaimed. Maybe not in the exact form you imagined when you were 20, but in a form that honors who you have become, while also honoring who you were meant to be. The question is whether you are willing to blow on the embers, to add kindling, to risk the disappointment of trying and failing rather than living with the certainty of never trying at all. What still burns within you is not the past. It is the future you have not claimed yet. The dying fire is asking you to choose. Will you let it go completely cold, accepting that the unlived life will remain unlived? Or will you, while there is still time, while the embers still glow, gather your courage and reignite the flame? Not for anyone else, not to prove anything, but because somewhere deep inside, beneath all the resignation and grief, you still want what you wanted. And that wanting, that persistent ember, is your soul's way of telling you it is not too late, not yet, but the fire will not wait forever. If your intuition pulled you toward the ceremonial fire, the sacred flame burning with intention and purpose, lit not for warmth or destruction, but for ritual, for meaning, for connection to something greater than yourself, you have revealed something profound about what still burns within you. What you crave, what you have been denying, what refuses to die despite living in a world that values productivity over purpose, is sacred meaning, spiritual calling, the deep, unshakable knowing that you are here for a reason, that your life is meant to serve something larger, that there is work only you can do. If you chose the ceremonial fire, you are exhausted from living a meaningful life. And what still burns inside you is the longing to finally align your existence with your soul's true purpose. You have spent your life being productive, achieving goals, checking boxes, building the resume, the career, the life that looks successful by every external measure. But there is a hollowness you cannot shake, a sense that you are doing everything right but nothing that matters, that you are busy but not fulfilled, that you are successful but not satisfied, because what you actually want, what your soul actually craves, is not more achievement. It is purpose, contribution, the feeling that your life means something beyond your own comfort and survival. The ceremonial fire reveals that your unlived life is not personal. It is transpersonal. It is about service, legacy, offering your gifts to the world in a way that transcends ego. In Jungian terms, the ceremonial fire represents the call to individuation, the journey toward becoming fully yourself in service of the collective. If you chose this fire, you have probably always felt different, like you were meant for something specific, but could never quite name it. You have probably had moments of deep knowing, flashes of clarity about what you're supposed to do, but then practical reality intervened and you dismissed them as fantasy or ego or unrealistic idealism. What still burns inside you is that knowing, that call, that persistent whisper saying there is work you came here to do and you have been postponing it your entire life. People see you as successful, maybe even accomplished. They have no idea that you feel like you are wasting your life. That every day you spend doing work that does not feed your soul feels like a betrayal. That you sometimes look at your calendar full of meetings and obligations and think, this is not why I am here. The ceremonial fire reveals that your unlived life is vocational in the deepest sense. Not a job, not a career, but a calling. The kind of work that uses your unique gifts to serve something that matters. Work that might not pay well or impress people, but that makes you feel aligned with who you really are. But here is the shadow of the ceremonial fire. You are terrified of claiming your purpose because it feels arrogant. Who are you to think you have a sacred calling? Who are you to believe your life is meant for something significant? So you keep the fire contained. You keep your purpose small and private. You volunteer occasionally or pursue your passion as a hobby, but never give it the full commitment it deserves because going all in feels too risky, too vulnerable, too likely to expose you as delusional if you fail. And so your purpose remains unlived. The ceremonial fire burns, but it burns in private, never given the oxygen of full expression. Jung taught that the second half of life is meant for spiritual development, for asking not what the world wants from you, but what your soul wants through you. If you chose the ceremonial fire, you are being called to shift from achievement to contribution, from success to significance, from living for yourself to living for something larger. This does not mean abandoning your life or becoming a martyr. It means integrating your purpose into your existence. It means asking what wants to be born through you and having the courage to midwife it into reality. What still burns within you is not ambition, it is destiny. The sense that you came here to do something specific and time is running out. The ceremonial fire is asking you to stop waiting for permission, for the perfect circumstances, for complete clarity. It is asking you to honor what burns inside you by finally, seriously treating your purpose as sacred, by building your life around it instead of fitting it into the margins, by trusting that the fire would not burn if you were not meant to tend it. The question is whether you will keep it hidden or finally let it light the world. Now that you have seen the fire that draws you closer, now that you have felt the uncomfortable recognition of what still burns within you, it is essential to understand what this means in the context of Carl Jung's revolutionary psychology. Because Jung did not study the psyche academically, he studied it desperately, knowing that understanding the unlived life was the key to healing the profound suffering most people carry without ever naming it. And what he discovered changed everything. He found that the greatest source of psychological pain is not what happened to us. It is what did not happen, the life we did not live, the self we did not become, the fire we let die. Jung called this phenomenon the unlived life, and he considered it one of the most dangerous forces in the human psyche. Because unlived life does not stay quietly repressed. It creates symptoms, depression that has no clear cause, anxiety that cannot be explained, rage that erupts over small things, chronic dissatisfaction despite external success, addiction to anything that numbs the persistent feeling that something essential is missing. These are not character flaws. They are the psyche's way of screaming that you are betraying yourself, that you are living someone else's life while your real life remains unlocked in the unconscious, burning, demanding to be lived. Owen Hermstring built on Jung's work by understanding that the unlived life is not abstract. It is specific, and it manifests symbolically. The hearth fire represents the unlived life of intimacy and belonging for those who chose self-sufficiency over vulnerability. The wildfire represents the unlived life of passion and freedom for those who chose safety over authenticity. The dying embers represent the unlived life of abandoned dreams for those who chose practicality over purpose. The ceremonial fire represents the unlived life of spiritual calling for those who chose achievement over meaning. Each fire is a mirror showing you exactly what you have been denying yourself and why that denial is slowly killing your soul. But here is what makes this so challenging. You did not choose to abandon your unlived life maliciously. You made reasonable decisions based on real circumstances. You needed to survive. You had responsibilities. You had people depending on you. You could not afford to chase dreams or follow passion or risk failure. So you did what you had to do. And Jung would never judge you for that. But he would ask you this: now what? Now that you have survived, now that you have met your responsibilities, now that you are no longer that scared young person making choices from fear, What will you do with the fire that still burns? Will you continue to deny it, or will you finally, while there is still time, give it oxygen? Integration is not about burning down your entire life. It is not about abandoning your family or quitting your job or making dramatic gestures that destroy what you have built. Integration is about honoring what still burns by making space for it in your actual life. If the hearth fire calls to you, integration means taking small risks toward intimacy, letting one person see you more fully. If the wildfire calls, integration means adding small adventures, small freedoms, small expressions of passion into your structured life. If the dying embers call, integration means spending even 1 hour a week on the dream you abandoned, proving to your soul that it still matters. If the ceremonial fire calls, integration means treating your purpose as sacred by carving out time and energy for it, even when it is inconvenient. Jung believed that the psyche has a natural drive toward wholeness, that it wants to integrate what has been split off, that the fire burns precisely because it is meant to burn. Your job is not to extinguish it or control it or feel guilty about it. Your job is to witness it, to acknowledge it, to ask what it wants, and then courageously to give it what it needs. Not all at once, not perfectly, but honestly. Because here is the truth Jung spent his life proving. The unlived life will not go away just because you ignore it. It will only grow more insistent, more symptomatic, more destructive. But the moment you turn toward it, the moment you acknowledge what still burns and commit to honoring it, something shifts. The symptoms ease, the depression lifts, the restlessness transforms into purpose. Not because your circumstances changed, but because you finally stopped betraying yourself. So now you know what still burns within you. You have seen the fire you have been avoiding. You understand the unlived life that has been creating your symptoms, your restlessness, your dissatisfaction. But awareness without action is just sophisticated suffering. Real transformation happens when you take what you discovered and use it to change how you actually live. When you stop analyzing your unlived life and start living it. This is where insight becomes power, where recognition becomes reclamation. If you chose the hearth fire, your practice is vulnerability in small doses. You do not have to tear down all your walls at once, but you do need to let one person in. Choose someone who has proven themselves trustworthy and tell them one true thing you usually hide. Share one struggle. Ask for one piece of support. Notice what happens. Notice if the world ends or if maybe connection feels better than protection. Then do it again and again. Build the muscle of intimacy by practicing being seen. Join a community. Show up to gatherings. Stop declining invitations because it feels safer to be alone. The hearth fire is reignited not through grand gestures, but through consistent small risks toward belonging. If you chose the wildfire, your practice is reclaiming one piece of freedom at a time. You do not have to quit your job tomorrow or leave your marriage or sell everything. But you do need to stop saying no to every desire that does not fit your responsible image. Book the trip you have been postponing. Start the creative project you have been dismissing as impractical. Take the dance class, learn the instrument, spend money on the experience instead of saving it all for someday. Give yourself permission to want what you want without justifying it. And most importantly, identify one constraint in your life that is no longer necessary, one rule you are following out of habit, not need, and break it intentionally. See what happens when you let the wildfire have even a little space. If you chose the dying embers, your practice is resurrection, and it starts with 1 hour. 1 hour this week dedicated to the dream you abandoned, not thinking about it, not planning it, actually doing it. If you wanted to write, write for 1 hour. If you wanted to paint, paint. If you wanted to build a business, spend 1 hour researching. Do not wait for motivation. Do not wait for clarity. Do not wait for permission or the perfect circumstances. Just prove to your soul that the dream still matters by giving it time. And here is what will happen. The embers will glow. You will remember why you loved this. You will feel alive in a way you forgot was possible. And that feeling will give you the fuel to do it again next week. The dying fire is not dead, it is waiting. And 1 hour of oxygen can reignite what you thought was lost forever. If you chose the ceremonial fire, your practice is treating your purpose as sacred. This means no longer relegating it to spare time or treating it as optional. Identify your purpose. If you do not know what it is, ask yourself, what would I do if money were not an issue? What breaks my heart about the world? What do people always come to me for? Where do my skills, passion, and the world's need intersect? Once you identify it, commit. Not someday. Now. Carve out protected time for it. Invest resources in it. Tell people about it, so you cannot quietly abandon it. And most importantly, stop waiting to feel ready or qualified or certain. The ceremonial fire does not burn because you are ready. It burns because you are called. Your job is to tend it with the reverence it deserves. For all fires, there is one universal practice. Stop negotiating with your soul. Stop making deals where you promise to honor what burns later, or when circumstances are better, or after you finish this one thing. Your soul does not negotiate. It burns or it dies. And every day you postpone living, what still burns within you is a day you choose slow death over difficult life. Jung said it clearly. The unlived life is not a neutral absence. It is a presence, a force, and it will either destroy you through symptoms or transform you through expression. The choice is yours, but you cannot make no choice. Inaction is a choice to let the fire die, and you did not come this far. You did not feel the recognition of seeing your fire to let that happen. Not anymore. You have walked through fire today, the kind that does not burn your skin but illuminates your soul. You stood before 4 flames, 4 mirrors of the unlived life, and you chose the one that hurt to look at. The hearth fire revealing your hunger for belonging, the wildfire exposing your suppressed passion, the dying embers showing your abandoned dreams, the ceremonial fire calling you to purpose. Each one a different manifestation of what still burns within you despite all your attempts to be practical, responsible, and safe. Each one a piece of yourself you thought you could live without, each one proving you were wrong. Carl Jung spent his entire career trying to wake people up to one devastating truth. You can survive without living. You can achieve without thriving. You can exist without truly being alive. And most people do exactly that. They build impressive lives on the outside while slowly dying on the inside. They chase goals that do not actually matter to them. They maintain relationships that feel empty. They work jobs that drain their soul. They tell themselves this is maturity, this is responsibility, this is what adults do. And all the while, the fire inside them burns, creating symptoms they cannot understand, restlessness they cannot name, and a persistent feeling that something essential is missing. What still burns within you is not nostalgia, it is not fantasy, it is not selfishness or immaturity or irresponsible dreaming. What still burns is your soul's knowledge of what you came here to do, who you came here to be, how you were meant to live. And that knowledge does not die just because you ignore it. It does not fade just because you get older. It burns, and it will keep burning until you finally honor it or until it burns you out completely. Those are your options. There is no third path where you successfully suppress the fire without consequences. Owen Hermstring proved what Jung intuited. The unlived life is specific, and it is visible if you know how to look. The fire you chose today is not random. It is diagnostic. It is showing you exactly where you have been betraying yourself, exactly what needs to be reclaimed, exactly what will continue to create suffering if you keep denying it. And now that you have seen it, you cannot unsee it. You cannot go back to pretending you do not know what you want. You cannot go back to convincing yourself you are fine when the fire inside you proves you are not. You are at a threshold, and you have to choose. Will you go back to the life you were living before this video, the one where you manage the fire, contain it, keep it small and private and safe? Or will you do something different? Will you take one small step toward honoring what burns? Will you risk 1 hour, one conversation, one choice that aligns with the fire instead of suppressing it? Because here is what Jung discovered and what Hermstring confirmed. You do not need to change your entire life overnight. You just need to stop abandoning yourself. You need to prove to your soul that what burns matters, that you are finally ready to listen. Which fire drew you closer today? The hearth, the wildfire, the dying embers, or the ceremonial flame? And more importantly, what will you do about it? Will you let this be another moment of recognition that leads nowhere? Or will you let this be the moment you finally, courageously choose to live what has been unlived? Share your fire in the comments. Tell the truth about what still burns. Your honesty might give someone else permission to finally stop denying their own flame. Subscribe to this channel for more explorations into the unlived life, the journey toward wholeness, and the courage to become who you were always meant to be. 2 more videos are appearing on your screen now. Choose one to continue this journey, because this work is not finished. The fire is not done with you, and neither is your soul. Until we meet again, stop negotiating with what burns inside you. Stop postponing. Stop waiting for permission or perfect circumstances or complete certainty. The fire does not wait. Life does not wait. And your soul will not forgive you for dying with your music still inside you. Honor what burns. Feed it. Let it light your path forward. Because what still burns within you is not your problem. It is your purpose, and it is time, finally, to let it burn.